Hey everyone, before I start, I just want to give a massive thank you to Bethesda for sponsoring this video. They provided me with an early copy of Redfall so that I could provide all of you with some of my lessons learned playing the game for the first time. The result is the ultimate vampire survival guide and your one-stop shop for all of the things that I personally feel you need to know before fighting the blood-sucking menace on your first playthrough. If any of the gameplay I've shown you has piqued your interest, there will be a link in the description which takes you directly to the Redfall website where you can purchase a copy of the game. Or if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you'll be able to play Redfall day one on both Xbox Series X and S and PC. The following tips and tricks are based primarily on my own experience with the game thus far and are in no particular order of importance. All of them are equally important to surviving the vampiric apocalypse. So without further ado, let's start with tip number 1. Pay attention to your surroundings. This tip may seem really simple and honestly kind of superficial at first glance, but trust me, Redfall is a game that both benefits and rewards the most observant of players. When you venture out into the open world, you'll find lots of environmental storytelling, both big and small, that will help you put the pieces together in regards to what happened to the everyday people living in this small seaside town. Oftentimes, finding these small slices of environmental storytelling will lead you to some valuable items, whether that be guns, gear, or even cosmetic items to customize your character. In the open world of Redfall, know that you'll be constantly rewarded with something for your efforts. Another reason you should pay attention to your surroundings is because, in my experience, it was super easy to get lost in this world that Arcane Studios created. Yes, you do have access to a map and you'll unlock multiple fast travel points that you can use, but it's far better for you to explore every nook and cranny on foot without relying on the map and fast travel too much. As a result, it's important to use natural tools and clues given to you by the environment itself, namely your compass at the top of your screen, which will orient you in the proper cardinal directions, as well as keeping an eye out for important landmarks scattered throughout the open world that will also help you to properly position yourself and know exactly where you need to go. I mentioned earlier that you can find valuable loot by encountering bits of environmental storytelling, but you can also find loot like powerful weapons hidden away in realistically appropriate places. In other words, buildings or locations where you would expect to find specific items, like a local pawn shop, a sporting goods store, various police cars abandoned along the main roads, large safes tucked into an office or a closet, things like that. Redfall is a slightly less fantastical world than the likes of Dunwall from the Dishonored series, but that gives you a distinct advantage because we're all familiar with pawn shops, sporting goods stores, suburban neighborhoods, and the like, places that in real life we would be able to find something to defend ourselves with. Tip number 2, loot everything. For a loot fanatic like myself, and probably many of you, Redfall is a paradise. You'll find many highlighted items that can be looted, and you'll want to make it a habit of picking up anything that isn't nailed down. When you do pick up lootable items, they are automatically converted into the main currency in Redfall known as support, meaning they won't take up valuable inventory space that you need for your gear. Different items will also come in different support tiers, meaning certain loot items you find will be worth more of the currency than others. Once you've gathered enough of the support currency, you can then use it to purchase useful items that you'll need to open up more explorable spaces in the open world, mainly lockpicks and rewire kits, which can be purchased at liberated safe houses located in each neighborhood, as well as your first main hub area in Redfall, the fire station. Tip number 3, switch out and salvage your weapons regularly. So you've been playing Redfall for about an hour or two and you've looted and equipped some really killer firepower? Well, that's great, but you should not make it a habit to keep these weapons. You'll be leveling up your character at a consistent pace, as well as combating higher difficulty enemies, so you'll need your gear to keep up with you. Even if you've managed to acquire an unrivaled rarity weapon, which is the highest weapon rarity you can achieve in Redfall, if it's 3, 2, or even 1 level beneath where your character currently is, do not be afraid to scrap that weapon, even if you know you'll be replacing it with a lower rarity weapon, because odds are high that the lower rarity weapon will be at your current level and have better stats and DPS capability. Speaking of guns, at the fire station hub area, you'll find a merchant that sells a rotating stock of firearms with various rarity levels. If you don't like their current selection, you can pay a small amount of support to refresh their inventory, and chances are pretty good that you'll find a weapon sold here that is far better than what you currently have equipped. Tip number 4, closely review your character skill trees. Even though you eventually gain the ability to respec your spent skill points, you won't earn enough to where you can max out each skill tree, so choose carefully. Examine each skill and its associated tree to determine what appeals to you and your preferred playstyle the most, as well as what will provide you with the most fun and beneficial experience playing through the game. Try as best you can to plan out your character build ahead of time, but also keep in mind that the overall system is pretty freeform in its design, so even if you make a mistake and pick the wrong skill for your playstyle, you can still go back later and respec your assigned skill points. That's what that feature is designed for after all. Tip number 5, be prepared for a challenge. The enemies that you'll face, primarily the vampires, are not a cakewalk. Be prepared to use everything you have at your disposal to fight these creatures of the night. The human cultists are more like cannon fodder than anything, but in large numbers can overwhelm you if you're not careful. You should always carry at least one weapon with a stake attachment, as well as one special vampire killing weapon like a flare gun, a stake launcher, or a UV beam. Your third weapon slot can be filled by whatever weapon you would like, but just make sure you have the 2 that I mentioned, so that way you'll have maximum vampire hunting efficiency. If you also end up finding that the combat is too difficult, like I did at several points during my first few hours, do not be afraid or feel guilty for lowering the difficulty level. Certain segments of Redfall, like the procedurally generated vampire nests for example, contain some pretty big difficulty spikes, and while I started the game on the dusk difficulty level, I moved it up to midnight and found that it was simply too much for me, especially in the aforementioned nests, where you can easily be swarmed by a legion of bloodsuckers. Once again, I just want to say that these gameplay tips are mostly representative of my own experience with the game thus far, and your mileage may vary depending on your personal preferences and playstyle, but these are all things that I felt you should know before venturing out into the open world of Redfall for the first time. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about your time in Redfall so far. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like and share the video around with other members of the Bethesda and Arcane Outsiders community. It really helps the channel to grow and get noticed. Consider subscribing to the channel for more Redfall content in the future, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And remember that the outsider walks among us. Thanks for watching, everyone.